So, if you're reasonably comfortable with dealing with the Linux command line and editing code and with Python, you don't even have to be that familiar with Python really, I've got a little challenge for you, a little bit of a hands-on exercise. So following along, just doing what I do isn't always enough. Sometimes it helps to dive in there and make some changes on your own. So here's my challenge for you. Take that sparkflume.py Python script that we just used in the previous lecture for actually aggregating information from our Apache access logs over a 5-minute window and modify it in a couple of ways. First thing I want you to do is, instead of aggregating how many times each URL is seen, I want to figure out how many times each HTTP status code is seen. So if you're not familiar with HTTP status codes, whenever you hit a web server, something can happen. You can have a successful request, in which case a status code of 200 is generated, or there might be a server error, in which case you might get a status code of 500, or there might be a redirect, in which case you have a status code of like 301 or 302. But every request has some sort of a status code indicating whether that request succeeded, or it failed, or it got redirected, or something else. So you'll see in our regular expression in that Spark streaming script, there is a field called status. So all I want you to do is, instead of extracting the URLs and aggregating on that, aggregate on the status field instead. So that's fairly straightforward, right? The other thing I want you to do is change the slide interval on this streaming job. So instead of using a slide interval of every 1 second to look back over 5 minutes of data, let's change that to say 5 seconds, okay? So what you should only see the output being generated every 5 seconds, reflecting the last 5 minutes of information received. Go back, make those changes, and see if you can run it and get it to work. So to recap your challenge, I want you to aggregate status codes, HTTP status codes, over the past 5 minutes using a slide interval of 5 seconds. So give it a shot, and I'll show you how I did it in the next lecture.